Welcome to the Beau Show. In a rare victory for free speech, Ofcom, or the Office of Communications, a British regulatory watchdog, has cleared former Good Morning Britain host Piers Morgan, stating that he did not breach broadcasting code when he stated that he did not believe Meghan Markle, the former Duchess of Sussex, in her interview with Oprah Winfrey. Morgan had dismissed Markle's claims of mental health struggles, as well as her claim that the royal family would not aid her in getting help. Here's what he said.
I had to lose my job for expressing a genuinely held opinion I felt was ridiculous at the time, and I think it's ridiculous now. I also think, frankly, it's pretty ridiculous that I discovered only several weeks ago that Meghan Markle had written personally to the chief executive of ITV, Dame Caroline McCall, and demanded my head on a plate, which she then got within a few hours. Last time I checked, it's not Meghan Markle's job to decide the news presenters of UK television breakfast programmes, and it shouldn't be her job. And I think, again, what Ofcom have said today is that I'm allowed, like anyone on television in this country, to express my opinion, and if you don't like it, you don't have to like it. I'm not going to stop you having yours about me. Well, it's not a question of I didn't want to lose my job in the first place, but I only want to work for somebody who supports free speech and freedom of expression. And I felt that, frankly, ITV let me down, and they let the viewers of Good Morning Britain down. Remember, that day, we had the highest audience we'd ever had. We beat the BBC for the first time. That was what they wanted me to do. And they wanted me to do it by expressing strongly held opinions. So I did. Everyone tuned in that week to hear what I had to say about the Meghan and Harry interview on Oprah, in which they told a number of falsehoods. From claiming they had a secret wedding with the Archbishop of Canterbury, which would have been illegal, he had to deny it in public, otherwise he might have gone to prison, to saying that their son isn't a prince because of his skin colour, utter nonsense. And they also said that a member of the royal family said something racist about their son, but they won't name who that is.
So unless ITV change their position, you don't want that?
I think there are two things here. I think ITV need to reflect on what Ofcom have said today and consider whether it's still correct for them to demand I make an apology for my opinion. But also I think the Duke and Duchess of Sussex should also reflect on this, and they should work out whether it is fair of them to spray gun the British royal family with all these lurid allegations without producing a shred of evidence. 5 months later, there is no evidence for any of their allegations. And I'm not saying they didn't happen, I'm just saying put up or shut up.
Morgan's comments prompted 57,000 complaints, a record number for the Office of Communication in its 18-year history. Even the Duchess of Sussex herself registered a formal complaint. The backlash caused Morgan to quit his job and walk off set, especially as his co-host Alex Beresford chided him for continuing his tirade against Markle. Here's Ofcom's statement, quote, "Mr. Morgan's comments were potentially harmful and offensive to viewers, and we recognize the strong public reaction to them. But we also took full account of freedom of expression. Under our rules, broadcasters can include controversial opinions as part of legitimate debate in the public interest. And the strong challenge to Mr. Morgan from other contributors provided important context to viewers. ITV might consider the use of timely warning or signposting of support services to ensure viewers are properly protected," end quote. This is an interesting response because it's playing both sides a little bit. It's recognizing Piers Morgan's free speech, but also kind of admonishing him in a way by suggesting disclaimers. Morgan was hired to give his opinion, as controversial as that may be. And controversy is what makes good TV and good radio. Look at Howard Stern. In his most recent book, Stern talks about how having an opinion is the first rule in radio. You can't be bland or wishy-washy. You have to have a firm opinion. That's what makes a show interesting to watch or to listen to. Now, Morgan took a victory lap, penning an op-ed in the Daily Mail. He said, quote, "I'm delighted Ofcom has endorsed my right to disbelieve the Duke and Duchess of Sussex's incendiary claims to Oprah Winfrey, many of which have been proven to be untrue. This is a resounding victory for free speech and a resounding defeat for Princess Pinocchio. Do I get my job back?" Unquote. Morgan opens his op-ed with a quote from the great Winston Churchill, which goes like this, quote, "Everyone is in favor of free speech, but some people's idea of it is that they are free to say what they like. But if anyone else says anything back, that is an outrage," unquote. Morgan quotes this at the outset of his op-ed to lay the groundwork for his vindication. And I think Churchill's notion is right. It's like free speech is free as long as you agree with me. That's another way of saying it. Harry and Meghan had been trashing the royals for 2 hours in this interview with Oprah, with claims as brazen as that Archie wouldn't be a prince because of his skin color. She had also claimed that she and Harry had been married in a private ceremony a few days before the actual wedding, which Morgan said was provable nonsense. In Britain, the media has a regulatory body called Ofcom, which received this record number of complaints. And because the head of ITV, which owns Good Morning Britain, believed Meghan, Morgan was told either apologize or leave the show. This was a bad position to put a host like Morgan in, because he truly didn't and still doesn't believe Meghan Markle. And he's allowed to say that. What I still find perplexing is that a TV network would try to make him go back on the very opinion he is paid to give. I've been in positions in my career where I had to give the controversial or the odd man out opinion, knowing that I might be pilloried or vehemently disagreed with. But that's what I was being asked to do. If everyone agrees, then you don't have a show. It's boring. I relish a controversial role because it means that I've done my research and I have conviction and evidence for how I have formed my opinion, which frankly, anyone should do. But what should not happen is for any person being hired for their opinion to be beaten into submission or apologize for their opinion. The way they got rid of Piers is to put him in an apologize or leave predicament, which I think ITV was wrong to do. They made Morgan out to be a misogynist, racist bully when he was merely saying he didn't believe her. Ofcom's decision included this language, quote, "The restriction of such views would, in our view, be an unwarranted and chilling restriction on freedom of expression both of the broadcaster and the audience," unquote. That really sums it up well, because offensive speech has to be protected, because any such restriction disserves both the speaker and the audience. Morgan goes on to say that the point of journalism is to question and to challenge public figures, particularly when there is no evidence to support many of their claims. I think that is very true right now here in America with respect to Joe Biden. We are learning more and more about his bungling of the Afghanistan withdrawal, including phone calls that were meant to sway public opinion through untrue statements. It is the press's job to press, pun intended, Biden and Jen Psaki about this mishandling and the handing over of American names to the Taliban. Just a few months ago, the media's toughest question to Biden was what flavor ice cream he had. And now it's going to be, what did you know, when did you know it, and why did you let it happen? Piers Morgan says that at least 17 of the claims Harry and Meghan made in that Oprah interview have been proven to be false. Even the Archbishop of Canterbury had to fess up that he had not married Harry and Meghan in a private ceremony, contrary to the Sussexes' claims. And if you lie 17 times, that's a terrible track record. And why didn't Oprah push back on any of these claims? Was she too sympathetic to them, or was it just like rich pals crying over a glass of rosé? Here's probably my favorite part of Morgan's op-ed. He says, quote, "We now live in a woke-ravaged era where it's become a punishable offense to say what you really think about almost anything for fear that someone, somewhere, will be offended. This insidious cancel culture, as it's been termed, represents the most serious threat to democracy in my lifetime. People all over the world are being shamed, vilified, and even fired from their jobs for expressing an opinion that the woke brigade didn't like. Every day, social media platforms like Twitter and Facebook explode with self-righteous judgments handed down by the court of woke public opinion. And the consequence is that debate is being destroyed, at the altar of political correctness in a way that would have Churchill turning in his grave, unquote. What Piers is saying here is so true. It's free speech in a nutshell. When a society permits this outrage porn to dictate who can say what and what companies or broadcasters will do, you have lost your way. Okay, so what? A few people get their feathers ruffled. You have people like Harry and Meghan who used their freedom of speech, albeit spinning the yarn and telling some lies, and then you have a TV host who is paid to opine about this, who gets in trouble for questioning them, who might actually lose his position of opinion and analysis merely for expressing that an actress might have fibbed a bit? That is a sign of a devolved society. Piers goes on to say that people who call themselves liberal are becoming the worst kind of fascists, and that is absolutely correct. Whether that's in restricting free speech, voting rights, or lockdowns, there is nothing classically liberal at all about permitting the tyranny of the minority, to warp the world into one viewpoint. But that is exactly what liberals are doing. And the ironic thing is, Piers Morgan considers himself a liberal. So does Bill Maher. And both of these guys are wising up to what modern day liberalism is. It's not the do whatever you want, laissez-faire idea. It's restricting speech and killing careers and conformist corporatism and social justice bludgeoning and virtue signaling. Meghan Markle herself, the very woman who basically upended the royals by grabbing her princely husband by the English stones and ripping him apart from his family so that she could have it her way, wrote the head of ITV and appealed to her so that Piers Morgan would be forced to apologize or leave. I was very surprised by this because ever since Harry and Meghan left to pursue a cushy life in LA, you would think that they'd left it like a stench behind, not the ability to kill off one media guy's job who calls her out. And Piers is right to call out Oprah. Oprah has a huge voice and impact. She paved the way practically for Barack Obama. But she sat there and let Harry and Meghan go on with these claims for 2 solid hours without ever pushing back or asking for evidence or support. That's not journalism. Journalism is questioning and challenging, no matter who the subject is, especially an actress. Piers ends his op-ed with a question. Do I get my job back? I think that's a great way to leave it. He deserves his job back. He should have never been forced to leave. And look at what happened by domino effect. Sharon Osbourne had to leave the talk merely for sticking up for him. Shouldn't she get her job back? What about Mike Richards over at Jeopardy? Not only was he relieved of his hosting duties, he had to leave his position as executive producer. He's gone. What about Megyn Kelly at NBC? Do you see how many people have been forced out? This is absolute madness. It's interesting that the UK even has a regulatory body that makes these decisions, and they got it right. Here in the US, we only have the FCC, but it's really up to the broadcasters who are sadly controlled by the woke mob. That is who's calling the shots. You must have opposing opinions. You must show diversity of thought. I've seen shows, take The View for example, who since losing Abby Huntsman and Meghan McCain have zero pushback, zero diversity. What kind of a terrible show is that? And all of the offshoots of shows like that, The Talk is no exception. You have all these talk shows that don't have one conservative or libertarian or alternative viewpoint. They are forcing ideology. And it's more subtle than you think. It's not just the host's unanimous opinions, it's the way that stories are presented. Remember Jussie Smollett? Most talk shows thought he was absolutely serious and believed him outright. They gave him undeserved sympathy. I did not. I saw too many idiosyncrasies and holes in his story. I saw tweets he had made back to 2012 where he ripped into Donald Trump. And I thought, maybe this guy just hates Trump so much that he's willing to fake a hate crime. At the time, I was the odd man out. But I was vindicated. Those who believed him had to eat crow. Do you see the parallels? Meghan and Harry come out with these outrageous claims, and everyone just buys into it, including Oprah. Yet analysis and hindsight has proved them to be lying or disingenuous 17 times. That's a horrible record. I didn't believe Jussie Smollett, but lots of other people did. Am I a jerk for not believing him? No. I question. I use critical thinking skills. I use logic. Talk shows in this country, and obviously in Britain even, have taken a major nosedive. They don't enlighten us. In fact, they do the opposite. They push narratives, many of them false. And when anyone decides to buck the prevailing viewpoint, they get pilloried, fired, or forced out. That's not free speech. That's not democracy. And if we don't have free speech, what are we? If you look at places that restrict speech and criticism, you have China, Cuba, Iran, Afghanistan 2.0. These are all tyrannical governments. That's what a lack of free speech gets you. Is that what we want to become? Hindsight is 20/20, but in order to have clearer vision and not have to eat crow, we better start thinking more critically. And it's okay to voice an opposing view. But on social media, the outrage of a few is determining your fate. Ofcom received a record number of complaints over Piers Morgan's comments, but he was proven right. Now, he's a rich guy and likely not hurting for cash, but what about everyone else? What about that viewpoint you want to express, but you feel that you can't because your boss might see it and fire you? I've had many people write me privately and thank me for being their voice because they know they can't express their opinions for fear of retaliation, especially in their jobs. That should never be the case. It's highly likely, I'm going to say probable, that I will revisit this same subject the next time someone falls victim to mob attack. We keep allowing it. For every case like this where someone gets shot down, we need an equal number of people pushing back in support. Think of how livid parents are getting right now at school board meetings. They have had it with all of the nonsense, and they are expressing their right to speech and expression. It is vital for a thriving, healthy democracy to permit and encourage speech, even if that speech is critical or offensive. Without pushback, you get suckers, you get betas, you get those with no spine, and we have seen where that can lead. Vibrant societies have vibrant speech. Is there any wonder that it is the First Amendment? Not the Second, not the 12th, it's the First. That's how highly the framers felt about this fundamental right. And therefore, we have to protect it as such. Piers Morgan's situation is just a microcosm of what is happening. And it still remains to be seen whether he will get his job back. So far, have you seen anyone that has been killed off of their jobs ever get reinstated? Wouldn't it be radical and actually commendable if they reinstate Sharon Osbourne? It would signal that companies are going to defend free speech, even if it offends people. They need to be saying what I'm saying right now, which is sure, you may disagree, but it serves the speaker and the audience to have a robust debate. Why do you think opinion polls are never 100% to 0%? Because people disagree. They want to feel represented. That means you have to hire someone on opinion shows that disagrees and support their right to express those opinions. Piers Morgan can handle people writing into Good Morning Britain who disagree with him. But for his boss to force him out was ludicrous. He is certainly a provocateur, but we need provocateurs. We need the bold and the brave. In board meetings, we need alternative viewpoints. It's how you make companies better. To hear the ideas you haven't heard. That's the beauty of democracy. Think of the founders and the bitter battle over the Federalists versus the states' rights camp. They had to find compromise over time. They had to listen to the other side's arguments. If one group had said, it's our way or the highway, we might not have America. We surely wouldn't have the version of it that we do today, where free speech is prized. I can guarantee you that. If you think about it, one reason the patriots of 1776 decided to break with Britain was because they didn't have the free speech they desired. And yet, here we are in America making that very mistake that the early patriots were trying to get away from. And in a twist of irony, it is Great Britain and Ofcom that is actually standing up for free speech and Piers Morgan for his contrarian opinions. Isn't that bizarre? Great Britain, the country we broke from, is upholding free speech. And we here in America keep killing careers and restricting speech. This can be the bane of a free society like ours. We make these types of mistakes rather than remembering the reasons we created these amendments in the first place. And then we look at what we exported to the world, which is free speech. And Britain realizes that, and then it adopts it. And realizes they should, and they do. And then we Americans scratch our heads and keep bowing to woke mobs. Morgan is right to say that this is a watershed moment. It's like a landmark Supreme Court case. This could be precedent setting, and we are stupid if we don't pay attention and stand up for the very things our founders stood up for. People have got to stop with being offended over everything. So what? You get offended, big deal. Put on your big boy or big girl pants and move on. Express your opinion. Give your reasons. But stop demanding the head of everyone with whom you disagree. It's unnatural and undemocratic. Here's what Morgan said about the mob and corporations.
None of them watched Good Morning Britain. Good Morning Britain viewers were incredibly upset that I left, like I was. Ask them. The Twitter mob comes for people, and it's down to the corporate world to stand up to them. Stop bowing to this mob, because they quickly move on.
We are learning a lesson from Great Britain a second time. What we choose to do is up to us. I'm Beau, and that's the show.